New game modes? Wait, what? Video. New game modes. Okay, guys, you got me. I'm conceding another game. Let's check it out. Fucking hate you guys. You guys are the worst. This better fucking be real.
We're in two different places, but
How's
through the
that?
magic of video editing
and friendship.
I'm okay with that.
We've joined
It's
together
like,
to deliver this
I know it
update.
seems
But before we
cringy,
dive
but
in,
it's
we wanna
obvious
share
they're
some thoughts
self-aware.
on how we decided what to develop next.
These guys are self-aware, guys.
We
It's
believe
fine.
that for
If there's a
our
fine line.
Engaging for years, we need to bring more than new cards to the table. We're always asking ourselves the question, how is the game more fun today than it was yesterday? So although we've only been out of beta for a month, we're already thinking about the next thing, and the two things after that.
Our goal has been to develop an entire ecosystem of modes and features.
So one piece of feedback I gave them is that something like Tavern Brawl is really important. That's not like, I mean, they already knew that though. Tavern Brawl. I think
show
Tavern
off
Brawl is
your
one of the
skill.
smarter things about
Today,
Hearthstone, actually.
We're going to share some details about the ones coming to Legends of Runeterra over the next few months.
Let's get after it!
There's more than one way to challenge your skill in Legends of Runeterra. Sometimes you might live for the climb of ranked, while other times you might prefer to test your drafting ability in expeditions.
Okay. Almost nobody likes expeditions. And I'm not outing people who do like it. I will say, like, I've talked a lot about this. I think that expeditions has seemed very unpopular. Draft is always a side mode in card games. Something about expeditions seems a little like it needs to change. When I first looked at how expeditions did, I was like, wow, this is a cool concept. But the more I played it, and almost everyone agrees with this, the more they're like, I like it less than draft. It doesn't feel great. So,
And some days, it's all about the fierce competition of the emote meta.
But when it comes to
these guys get me.
the different and exciting
These
ways
guys
to use your
fucking
collection
get
of
me.
cards, we've barely scratched the surface.
And that's where Gauntlets come in. Gauntlets are limited time competitive modes with unique rules to play around and exclusive rewards to unlock. Every Gauntlet asks a simple question: can you make it to 7 wins? Over time, new Gauntlets with different rules will be added, so you'll have to prove your skill in brand new ways. We might also bring back your favorites in the future.
The first Gauntlet in June will use standard deck building rules as we test drive the underlying tech.
So it's like Tavern Brawl with a gauntlet, like there's different
Next
rules every
Gauntlet,
time.
however, will challenge you to build a deck using no more than one
Singletons.
copy of each card.
Yeah.
We expect it to be very popular with cats and mech suits.
I don't know if that will be popular.
But Gauntlets aren't the only game in town. Let's talk about labs.
This sounds interesting. Let's see what this
Labs
is.
are experimental game modes based on more extreme changes to the classic Legends of Runeterra formula. You'll never know what you're going to get with a lab, but we guarantee there will be wild gameplay and some mad science.
Labs are intended to be a little more chaotic and casual than Gauntlets. And if there's a lab you really love, it can
This
make
is cool. This is a cool,
a
like,
return someday.
The first experiment begins in July. We won't spoil what Heimerdinger has in store, but it involves unusual champion team-ups, unpredictable strategies, and action that starts right on round 1.
Ah, the sweet smell of science!
And there's something else happening in July. Legends of Runeterra's first event.
From time to time, we'll have special thematic events that bundle together cosmetic items, quests, and potentially a gauntlet or a lab. It's a month-long celebration of cool new stuff to check out.
During an event, every player will have access to a series of limited time rewards that can be unlocked just by playing.
the ad was
There will
better.
also be an event pass in the store that adds even more rewards for you to unlock along the way.
We still plan to add more ways to personalize your game with each set of cards, but we also wanted to include opportunities to unlock sweet cosmetic content at other moments throughout the year.
We want events to be a great way to get even more rewarded for the hours you spend playing Legends of Runeterra. If you're the kind of player who likes collecting the latest and greatest, boards, guardians, emotes, and more, events are your time to shine.
Finally, we can't leave out all the new cards coming in 2020.
We said before that each expansion will add a new region and cards for existing regions. but we've also been looking for ways to make content even more impactful and keep the meta evolving as new cards enter the mix.
Our goal is to release more cards more frequently, creating back-to-back waves of new mechanics and champions. So in August, the next region of Runeterra will debut, with new champions and a bunch of supporting cards. Then every 2 months, we'll bring a new drop of cards, including more champions. And every 6 months, the next region of Runeterra will join the roster.
Let's
No
let it finish
spoilers
first.
on what
I'm
happens
gonna talk
after
about this.
So far,
There's a
we've
lot.
been talking about the next few months, but there will be new things coming to the game
That's huge.
throughout the whole year.
In 2020, we're planning to tackle a bunch of key features and improvements you've requested, like an update to Master Rank LP, improvements to the deck builder, in-game leaderboards, and yes, spectator support. Some of these will be quality of life improvements, while others are critical to supporting the future of Runeterra, especially its competitive scene.
We're also currently in development on other modes, like tournaments and single-player experiences. We don't have a lot to say beyond the fact that they're in development, but when we're ready with more details, we'll be sure to share an update.
I long for a worthy opponent.
Some
It's
kind of tournament
important
mode.
to
That's
us
nice.
that you have a good idea where the game is headed. We're super excited for the rest of 2020, and we hope you're starting to get excited too.
With new Gauntlet competitions, lab experiments, special events, and even more frequent card releases, Legends of Runeterra will have more ways than ever before to test your skills as a player, deck builder, and collector. No matter what kind of challenge gets your gears turning, we're aiming to create something you'll love this year.
As always, we will be paying close attention to your feedback and what you choose to play. We are constantly evaluating the game based on your experiences and not just what seems like a good idea on paper.
We expect everything mentioned in this video to grow and evolve over time, so we'll need your help to improve each feature and build Legends of Runeterra into the best game it can be.
Thanks for bearing with us as we struggle through our home video setup.
Andrew, your camera's messed up or something.
What is it?
Your hair
Oh
looks
no, they're
shorter.
doing it again.
Weird. We'll be back soon
Okay.
to share more details.
That
on the
one,
upcoming event.
less so.
In the meantime, we hope you're having a blast with Bilgewater, and we'll see you on the slaughter.
That one didn't
Stay
work.
safe, and thanks for watching.
So, the one big update. I want to say, first of all, this is a pog fucking video. I was like, you know, I took a week off, and part of it was just like personal stuff that was going on. But I was definitely a little burned out of the game. This is really,
every two-
this is a complete game
And every
changer.
6 months.
This
next
is crazy. This is crazy. So they're doing new cards every 2 months. Now they didn't say how many new cards it is, right? They didn't give like an idea of the size. They didn't even give like a general idea. It could be, I mean, as far as we know, it could just be like 20 or 30 new cards, right? Like, we don't know. Mini expansions, yes. But we have no idea how many, unless I missed something. Maybe they implied something, but I don't think we can even guess. They just said new cards. I think that's all they said. Probably average around 12 inches. Wait, 12 inches is average? 10 total regions. Yeah, and I say 2 plural. So yeah, there's at least 2 new cards per thing. It's hard to say how many new cards each of these is going to be. It's probably 40 ratio-wise. That sort of range would be a good guess. So yeah, every 2 months they're doing a sweet new card update. I think I really like the framework of this. I think I really do. Somebody was saying that, like, a friend of mine was actually asking me just like 2 days ago, Swim, do you think it's okay that they only do balance patches once a month? And I was saying yes, because even though we belong to the like small subset of players that want a lot of frequent changes, there's a ton of people that like aren't playing super grindy and just don't like the idea of coming back to a game and all the cards being different and have to relearn stuff. That's a super common perspective. But this kind of gets around that. Like, instead of just like balancing very aggressively, they're just adding more cards more often. And I really like that. I think that this kind of approach is perfect, actually. Card games have always struggled with this. They've always struggled with this, which is like, how do we stay fresh? Because card games, more so than any other genre of game, are dependent on updates. Card games kind of suck when there's no updates. Like they kind of really suck. Like, the whole point of a card game is like learning new things and creating new things. That's so when you have a card game that's, you know, maybe like Hearthstone, where they have these big expansions, and I do think Hearthstone does expansions pretty well. Like they're very big, and they do a lot of interesting things per expansion. But there's a ton of dead time between expansions, like really dead time. And then there's some games that, like Gwent, for example, currently changes a ton of cards very often, and that makes it hard to keep track of it because you have to just be constantly playing it. It is good for players that play their game a ton, and that's players like me and players like a lot of you guys, but it's really bad for players that just kind of want to play like once every, you know, couple of weeks. Maybe they'll pick it up for a week on the expansion, but if all the cards are different, they really don't like that. I think this is kind of like a perfect middle grounds. We'll see. I don't know how many new cards it is per area, but I think that this is kind of like what I would consider to be sort of the perfect approach, right? Yeah, this is gonna do a really good job of keeping things very, very fresh. New cards every 2 months, new regions every 6. The big question is, you know, what is it? So that means we're currently at 7 regions. There's gonna be what, 10? Some people are saying up to maybe like 12. So what that means is in a year and a half or 2 years from now, something along those lines, which is a long ass time. Who knows what things will look like then? But there will come a time where they have the regions they wanted to add, and at that point they'll transition. Presumably they will transition into a kind of different style of update. Although they could also just like add more regions to the lore, right? It is very possible. Some things that they do, which is very interesting, by the way, it is possible that when they highly doubt it. Oh, you guys think there's just no way they add new regions? I think it's unlikely. I do think it's pretty unlikely. Has this lore just been established for a super long time? Have they just like never really added new regions? Okay, you guys are more familiar with League than I am, so if you guys feel like that's super unlikely, I'll trust you guys on that. So yeah, there will come a time like 2 years from now where they will basically have to switch the rotation system, and instead of adding new regions, they'll just be kind of probably doing kind of normal expansions where it's like, you know, every 6 months the big expansion will hit all regions equally, right? Okay. But yeah, that's the run of it. It looks really good. They didn't really mention a lot about labs. They just said, just to summarize, just to recap, they said labs were crazy, right? But they didn't really say anything else. They just said, ooh, this is some crazy new thing that's going to come. And then gauntlets are, as far as we can tell, they're sort of like a watered down version of a lab. They're just a gauntlet with semi-standard rules. So, you know, you're going to see a lot of like what you would expect there. There's going to be like 1 week, it might be, oh yeah, they give the example of you just have to use singletons. Or 1 week, it might be, oh, you have to use a deck with only units and no spells, or something like that. You know, just deck building restrictions. There might be 1 week where it's something interesting, like, oh, you know, you can use, because with Hearthstone's Tavern Brawl, they did a very similar thing where they added a bunch of interesting new rules every time, and some of those rules like broke the game. Like, for example, you know, one kind of crazy sort of week that I liked is a week where it's like you pick 2 cards, and those 2 cards are your entire deck. It's like 15 of one card and 15 of the other card, and that's your deck. And then there was another one where it's like pick 3 cards and that's your entire deck. Honestly, those get old really fast, but when you play them for the first like couple of hours, just figuring out like what is crazy and abusable, that's actually a lot of fun, and it's very different. That sort of craziness is probably what they have planned for labs, whereas gauntlets are just going to be more like deck building with restriction X, right? I think would make the most sense. Now, what I really want, and what has been sort of missing from this, but might be in their plans and might be in labs, I really like puzzles. I have a big weakness for puzzles. I have like very fond memories of like, I used to play a lot of the old Yu-Gi-Oh games on Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS. And there were always, in all of those new games, there were like a series of like puzzles. So a puzzle in a card game is like, they give you a board state. It's usually very convoluted and usually will never happen in a real game. But it's just a situation where it's like win in 1 turn, and you have to do like a crazy thing to win in that turn. And if you haven't seen this kind of concept before, you'd be surprised how hard these can be. You can spend like an hour trying to figure out how to win in that 1 turn sometimes, right? I've loved it in Yu-Gi-Oh! I loved it in Duelist back when that was a video game. Mythgard had puzzles, and those were actually really great. And Runeterra does sort of have some kind of puzzles. In the tutorial system for Runeterra, when you're a new player and you're looking at, like, there's some single player, like, tutorial / puzzles that are really, really basic, but they're not really puzzles, right? They're not trying to be, like, tricky or, like, trick you up. I'd love to see that, personally. A lot of card games haven't done that. Like, Hearthstone hasn't really done that very much. They did it in Hearthstone. Maybe they did it after I stopped playing, but I don't think they've done it a ton. Like, I don't think they've gone hard into the puzzles, have they? Dr. Boom Lab? Okay, so I guess they added that later. I don't know about Dr. Boom Lab. But yeah, that sounds fun. And then, you know, Magic Arena also, as far as I know, hasn't done that yet either. But either way, for most digital card games, puzzles seems like a really low priority for most developers. So I don't know if we, and Runeterra, I mean, they haven't mentioned it, so I expect it'll be the same. We might not get that for years unless that's part of what they had with Labs. They did mention with Labs that it's not always starting on, like, turn 1. You jump right into the action, so maybe it's sort of that kind of thing, possibly. So, I don't know. If developers aren't doing it, I guess, or if they aren't putting a high priority in it, I guess that's a sign that there's not a huge demand in it. That would imply that I'm a bit of an outlier in just, like, really wanting these puzzles. And I will say, they are kind of a one-time thing. Like, as much as I do like the idea of puzzles, it does take a lot of time to develop them, and then as soon as you solve them once, you are just kind of done with it, right? Overall, I'm a really big fan. This is really interesting. They didn't really say a lot, right? Like, we don't know what Labs is at all. And they didn't say how big the card sizes would be for the individual, like, card updates. We have no idea. Not even, like, an implication. But I'm still really, really looking forward to the news here. This is great news, in my opinion. Like, there's so much good stuff here. I'm really happy we're hearing this news.